Hello, my name is Claire Plackey, and this is my final assessment for the class Advanced Strategies for Flexible and Responsive Teaching. Let's first talk about mid-course adjustments. There are many reasons why a teacher might make a mid-course adjustment, and it's absolutely appropriate to do so if it meets the learning needs of the students. I will talk about a couple of reasons why I could make a mid-course adjustment. The first is going to be student lack of understanding or skill and current event. Let's first talk about student lack of understanding. Here's a real-life example. Let's say I proposed my third grade class to complete a still life drawing. I show students how to draw from real-life objects and how to sketch out their drawings. As students are working, though, I notice that many of my students are struggling to show the objects realistically while using correct perspective. While students did learn about perspective before, it looks like they could use a refresher on the topic. I tell students to pause their drawings where they are, and I explain what I have noticed about their drawings. I explain that we will pause our still life drawings and participate in a refresher lesson on one-point perspective. I will review one-point perspective and have students follow along to create practice drawings. Before moving on from this perspective lesson, I will review each student's drawing to ensure that they have grasped the concept. Once students and I feel they've improved, they will return to their original still life drawings. This mid-course adjustment helped students improve a skill that will help them down the road with their other art projects. Another time I would make a mid-course adjustment is when a current event just took place and my students are highly aware of it. For example, there has been a lot of gun violence recently in the United States with the Uvalde school shooting and the other multiple shootings that have taken place recently. This is an incredibly difficult topic to discuss with anyone, let alone young students, but it needs to be talked about, especially in our classrooms. If I could tell students were being deeply affected by a recent event, I would shift my lesson to talk about how they are feeling and use SEL, also known as social emotional learning, techniques to allow students to share. I would allow students to draw or paint or create an art piece that shows how they are feeling. It would be a way for students to get out their anger, frustration, or sadness. I would put whatever planned lesson I had been about to teach to the side and save it for another day. Being an art teacher, I already have a lot of flexibility to write my own lessons, and I would feel totally comfortable making a last-minute switch and adjustment to help my students and meet them where they are in regards to their interests or what they are currently feeling. Let's talk about approaches for struggling students or students who need to be challenged. I will talk about a couple techniques I use on a regular basis, like step-by-step drawing with a teacher or student mentoring. First, let's talk about my first technique. If a student is struggling in my art class, a technique that I frequently use to show a student how to draw or paint something is drawing something on a separate piece of paper right in front of them in real time. They can follow along on their own project or paper, following the simple steps I'm showing them. Regardless of struggling students, I always use a document camera and projector to show students my process or way of thinking when showing students how to draw or make the project. But using this technique I just mentioned, I'm not directly drawing the image for them on their final project. I'm showing them they can keep the separate paper to look at and practice off of, and will develop their drawing skills by practicing. Additionally, another strategy I often use is a change in material. If a student is really struggling to use paint for their project and they have tried but are continuing to get frustrated, I will allow them to use material they are more comfortable with, like markers or colored pencils. I obviously am trying to introduce my students to lots of different types of materials and techniques, but sometimes it requires multiple exposures for students to feel comfortable using a new material. For students who need to be challenged, I will add on additional elements to their projects that will challenge their skill level or creativity and imagination. Their project may end up looking a little different than the other students, but that's the beauty of art anyway. No one's drawings or projects should look exactly the same. Alternatively, I will also assign a student that needs a challenge to be a mentor to other students who may be struggling. They can assist and show students how to draw something or use a new material or master a skill. This helps the students that need to be challenged as well as the students who are struggling. Let's talk about student feedback now. There are many different ways that you can gain student feedback, work off of it, and alter your lessons because of it. I will be talking about a couple of my favorites: informal conversations and exit tickets or surveys. First, let's talk about informal conversations. This is the most simple strategy I use, and I use it on a daily basis in my classroom. This is a very easy, informal way to get feedback from students and learn more about them. It builds a stronger, more meaningful relationship between me and my students, but it also tells me what students are interested in, and I can write my lessons based on their interests to increase engagement. I also can hear if students don't like a project, and I can adjust mid-lesson or rewrite it for my future classes when I reteach it. Another great way to get feedback, especially from students who may be shy or don't like to speak during class, is to use exit tickets or written surveys. Exit tickets can be daily closers to gauge student understanding or get feedback and questions. It can be as simple as having students write a question on a sticky note and placing it in a designated area in the classroom or collecting them. Or you could have students fill out a more formal survey to gain insight into their understanding of a topic or feedback about a recent lesson. Now let's talk about pathways to forming effective partnerships with educational community stakeholders. My suggestion is to reach out to local community organizations in your area, like local museums or local parks. Ask veteran teachers at your school if they have worked with local partners and their experiences in doing so. Also, there are many community Facebook pages that also are a great place to hear about different opportunities and events in your area that you and your students could participate in.